The Titans have a glaring need at edge rusher. They're probably going to draft one here next week when the draft kicks off. Let's go through some of the players we think should be their top targets at the position. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. And Justin, as I said, today we are talking through the edge position. And I'm going to throw something at you. I think when I texted you about this, I called it psychotic. So I'm acknowledging off the bat that it is a crazy idea. That's going to be part of our edge conversation. Before we get there, though, how's it going, my friend?
I'm doing well. And for the listeners, I don't know what he's talking about. He said he's going to throw something at me. He didn't tell me what. And so I'm not prepared for that at all. But I am excited to talk edge rushers today. You know, on our last episode, we spoke about a lot of wide receivers. We know the Titans are going to be targeting wide receivers, probably multiple of them. And the other position they might target multiple of is edge rushers. No doubt they've got huge holes, plural holes on the roster at that spot. Need to come away with at least one that can give them a lot of snaps this season. So, and it's a potential spot they might look at number 35. So we're going to run through the edges today.
Yeah, Zach Lyons, our buddy, F-Words Pod, Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons, adding the last names, has been tracking all the Titans visits, you know, not just the top 30 visits, but formal combine meetings, pro day meetings, private workouts, virtual meetings, and obviously you are a big part of breaking some of those visits and news items, but we don't have everything. Obviously, we only have what's been reported, but Zach has the Titans having talked to 5 edge players, most of them, you know, top 50, I would say, players in this class, top 75. And so the Titans are probably looking at the edge position pretty hard. They have a huge hole on the roster, especially after releasing Harold Landry. Basically just have Arden Key, signed Draymond Jones, who they did say would, you know, primarily play edge for them. But even that is only 2 guys. And then you have like Jalen Harrell and some late round UDFA type guys filling in as depth. And they don't even have like a star guy that like draws double teams. Like they need an impact edge rusher almost as bad as they need a quarterback. Obviously we know the quarterback need supersedes everything else just because of the importance of that position, and that's why Cam Ward will be the pick at number 1. But this glaring edge need is the reason there was so much talk about a possible trade back early on in the draft process a couple months ago especially. So Justin, before we get to edge targets that they might look at in the second round with the 35th overall pick or in a trade down scenario or some day 3 sleeper types, before we get there, I'm going to throw out the psychotic scenario. The thing that I do not expect this to happen in a million years, but it's kind of fun to think about and play around with. So the Titans have some players on the roster that could be moved, right? We've talked about it a little bit, not much on this podcast, but just in the Titans, you know, sphere of discussion. Jeffrey Simmons, potential out in his contract after 2026, was a semi-hot name at the trade deadline this past season. Ultimately, Rand Carthon and company decided not to move him. Has been vocal on Twitter about criticism from Titans fans and left and right. Recently said that as good as he thinks Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are, he would prefer the Titans draft Abdul Carter to beef up that defensive line. Is Jeffrey Simmons potentially on the move? And could that be a potential draft night trade? Now, I don't know. I'm not going to speak on whether they should move him or not. Everyone has their opinions on what they think of Jeffrey Simmons and the value he adds to this team. I will say 28 years old. I'm not sure his timeline lines up with Cam Ward. So if they did decide to trade him, I could understand why. I'm not saying if I'm for or against it. I'd need more time to think about it. But Justin, can I throw this absolutely batshit idea at you? Let's say the Titans take Cam Ward number 1, Travis Hunter goes number 2, and in some crazy world, the Giants decide, you know what, we're actually going to do it. We're going to take Shedeur Sanders at number 3 overall. There's been some, you know, reported renewed interest, and it's coming out that this workout Shedeur Sanders had on Thursday with the Giants was planned all along just because of the way the pro day and the workout schedules work out. But it definitely feels like the Giants are almost back in the mix to take Sanders at number 3. Todd McShay recently said, don't close the book on it. You've got New York beat writers saying they're taking Shedeur Sanders at 3. Let's say that happens for this psychotic scenario we're discussing. And now the Patriots are on the clock. And you might think, oh, Mike Vrabel's going to take Abdul Carter. Well, what if Mike Vrabel, who signed Harold Landry after the Titans released him, decided, you know what, Jeffrey Simmons was one of my favorite players to coach. He's on the market potentially. Maybe we trade for Jeffrey Simmons. So I cooked up a trade package, Justin. Just tell me how absolutely insane this is and if you would do this or not do this. My trade package is Jeffrey Simmons, pick 35, and a 2026 second rounder for pick number 4 overall and the second of the Patriots' 2 third-round picks, pick 77 overall. So the Titans go from 35 to 4. You lose a cornerstone defensive player, but you hope to be able to fill that, whatever his production, with a combination of players. You come up to 4. You pull off the old Houston Texans move when they drafted C.J. Stroud and then traded up for Will Anderson. So the Titans come out of this draft with Cam Ward and Abdul Carter. And then you don't pick again until 77. You give up the second rounder next year. I was looking at the trade value chart. If you think this is an unfair trade, those 2 picks from New England would total approximately 2,000 points. The Titans pick 35 is about 550 points. The future second rounder, you have to knock the value down a round, so it becomes like a third rounder, so it's in the 300 point range. It all comes down to how much is Jeffrey Simmons worth. Is Jeffrey Simmons worth a mid first rounder? Is that what he could go for?
Can I stop you?
Yeah.
You want me to be brutally honest with you?
Absolutely.
I do think it's one of the most unrealistic things you've come up with. I don't see any way in hell the Patriots are moving that. I know there's other things included, but they're not moving that 4th pick for like a 28-year-old, potentially overpaid Jeffrey Simmons. And I know Mike Vrabel loved coaching him, but they gave Milton Williams $100 billion this offseason to play the 3-tech. They've got Christian Barmore, who plays inside there too. Like Keon White, versatile. They paid Harold Landry. Like, I don't think, the scenario you painted, the Patriots sprint the card to the podium and take Abdul Carter at number 4. Like, there's no way. There's no way in hell that Jeffrey Simmons gets them like a second round pick, maybe. Like, you know what I mean? A third at worst case scenario. There's no package involved where he gets them into the top 5. Not without including like first round picks in return. Even then, like that pick at number 4, I don't see any way in hell that that's realistic.
So if you were the Titans, you would do it then because you don't think the Patriots would do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would do it. The Patriots would not.
And if it was a 2026 first round pick, would the Patriots do it?
I still think no, because it's like, I don't know what that's going to be. And I know that I'm at number 4 right now. Right? Like Cam Ward, I mean, the Titans might not be very good, but hey, if Cam Ward is good, Jaden Daniels, did I swap a 4th for number 26? I look like an idiot. Yeah, I got something else out of it, but no, I don't think there's any way. And unless there's like multiple firsts, I don't think the Patriots entertain it at all.
So that's the number 1 Titans edge target is Abdul Carter. And there doesn't seem to be any world where it would be possible for the Titans to take Cam Ward and Abdul Carter unless they gave up a mountain of draft capital that we know this regime doesn't want to part ways with. So we'll let that dream die. I'm going to keep dreaming it until draft night when the Patriots make that pick, or if Abdul Carter goes number 3. I'm just saying I'm going to keep dreaming it. I'm with you. I think it's very unrealistic. I don't think it has. That's why I called it the psychotic scenario. But there are other targets. So let's talk about some guys. If the Titans were to pick at 35, I'll preface this by saying Dane Brugler, who we just had on the podcast, has 17 edge rushers in his top 100 prospects, if you check out The Beast, which is a lot. This is a very deep edge class. It's similar to that year that had Bosa and Crosby and a whole bunch of guys that went from round 1 to round 3 to round 4 and came in and were impact players. And I think that this is the type of class that could produce a similar result where the Titans don't have to take Abdul Carter in the first round to get an impact edge rusher. So who are some of the guys that you've got your eye on at pick 35 if the Titans don't take a receiver there and they decide to address that edge?
Well, I think I'm going to place 3 players in that bucket at number 35 that I think you'd consider in, one way or another if they are there. Might have touched on this briefly with Zach Lyons, but I'm going to repeat myself. At 35, the 3 that I'd have in that bucket are Donovan Eziraku out of Boston College, Mike Green out of Marshall, and James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Now, with Green, I don't know how realistic that is because, he's getting a lot of first-round love. I think Pro Football Focus has him as like the second best edge rusher in this class. And I think Dane Brugler is very high on him, too. I can't remember where he's got him on the Beast. Maybe you'll look that up. But he's got him very high, if I recall correctly. To run through it, why do I bring up his name? Well, there were some off-field questions scouts had. There were a couple run-ins.
Not just off-field questions. He is number 10 in the Dane Brugler's top 100.
I did
And he's
remember that.
edge 4 edges in his top
That's
10.
crazy. PFF has him at 2. He's edge 2 for PFF, edge 4 for Brugler, but top 10.
And I was listening to Sam Monson and Steve Palazzolo's podcast for the 33rd team where they broke down the edge class, and they were adamant that, like, we are just talking about on the field what we see on tape.
Yes,
we're not getting into the character stuff. We don't have a chance to talk to these guys, and they have Mike Green as a high first rounder as well. But there are the off-field concerns. He's been accused of sexual assault twice. It happened once in high school. It happened again at Virginia Tech. Is that where he was?
It was at the first school, yeah.
Yeah, Virginia or Virginia Tech. Whatever school. He denies all allegations, but he was suspended for the one that occurred in college. I mean,
there was a no-nonsense policy at college because they knew there was the issue in high school. I'm not going to get too much into this. I don't think it's as much of a concern for teams as we think. I'm never going to absolve anyone of, something like that when I don't know the full story, but there are people that I trust who know the more intimate details of the story. I'm not going to tell it because I think that should stay private. But there are a lot of people who know the more intimate details of the story in the league, I should prefix with, that are more comfortable with it than you would be if, based on the seriousness of the accusation, right? That's all I'm going to say. But regardless, it's still a question.
And the point is, like, this guy who is a supreme talent might be there at pick 35 because of these off-field allegations. It was at Virginia, by the way, was the school he was suspended at. So talk to me about if he does fall, if, let's say, some of these teams, because it's such a deep edge class, that's the other factor here is, like, if there weren't so many talented players, maybe someone else is willing to take a chance on these off-field issues and he's gone by, in the top 20. But because of what we're dealing with and with such a robust class, maybe somebody goes the other way and he's there at 35.
Well, he's got one of the deepest pass rushing repertoires in this entire class. I mean, you wouldn't think that, right? Small school guy coming from Marshall, big time numbers. But again, it happened at Marshall. You kind of put an asterisk. But when you turn on the tape, you remove that asterisk because he's so much more developed as a pass rusher than you think he is. I mean, pure speed off the edge, athleticism, speed to power, clubs, swim, club rip, spin move. Like, this is just a deep pass rushing bag. Ultimately, I'm going to end this by saying I don't think he's there at 35. I do think he ends up going top 20 because of the caveat that we've kind of mentioned here. It's like Luther Burden almost. We talked a lot about at receiver. I think Luther Burden's a similar like talents. Now, they've got different degrees of off-field questions, but the point is they're talented guys that should go in the first round that might not. So if Mike Green is there at 35, you think long and hard about him. And you, of course, Titans would have to be comfortable with the off-field. But he's one of those three that would be in that mix there if he's there. The other one I want to touch on is Donovan Ezeraku, a much cleaner evaluation out of Boston College. I've kind of talked about the concerns a little with the size and the ability to defend in the run game. But I'm going to just take a leap of faith and kind of, while I acknowledge I have that concern, I'm going to decide to ignore it because I can't quit the production and I can't quit the athleticism, right? What was it, like 16 and a half sacks this past year? I think it was second most in the FBS or second most D1. And then I look at the combine numbers, right? The fastest three cone and the fastest shuttle among participating defensive ends. I actually got the numbers here. Is a 6.94 in the three cone, whereas I think as well as I do, anything under 7 is really considered elite, high-end elite territory. Then the shuttle was the 5.10.5 was a 4.19. Those are elite numbers in that department. That translates to the next level. I believe in the study that claims that elite agility translates and it develops, it helps guys develop into productive elite pass rushers. So when I pair the athleticism with the production, I can't quit him. If he's there at 35, they should strongly consider him. Third and final one I had there was James Pierce out of Tennessee. Like, I think I said this on an episode like last year. It might have been the J.C. Latham episode when we had Coach Kevin Wright on, when we were watching the tape against Georgia with Michael Williams. Like, going into the year, I thought Michael Williams and James Pierce Jr. were like the favorites to be the number one player in the draft if it was going to be an edge guy. And neither of them quite had the year that we thought they were capable of having. And with Pierce at Tennessee, I do think there's elite athleticism there. I think the pass rushing metrics are pretty damn good. He did have, what was it, like 8 sacks this past year, I think it was. But more so than that, the pressure rate was higher than the raw sack numbers indicate. There's another off field character question here. Now, this is not in the vein of Mike Green. This is not an accusation or an arrest. Apparently, it's just a locker room thing, right? There was I think it was, I don't know if I think it's hardly acknowledged in Brugler's. It was the scout for Go Long, who does that piece every year about the off field stuff. He mentioned some potentially damning things about his personality. So, again, I think Pierce is a first round talent on tape, even though he didn't have the best year. And I don't think he's a high end first round guy. I think he's like, that 25 to 32 range. But if he gets pushed down to 35, again, I think you strongly consider him, due to the raw upside and the talent that's there. He's long, he's athletic.
I think the report on James Pierce Jr. was that he had, quote, the worst character report of any player in this year's class. I was told the Tennessee football program could not only breathe easier once Pierce left campus, but that his pitch count and SEC play was not injury related. Pierce was seen as undeniably uncoachable and as a player with 1 foot out the door already this season, giving his coaches little incentive to put him on the field full time. Now you have to wonder, was that an immature guy who knew he was going to the NFL after this year, and so he just didn't, he wanted to protect his body and not get hurt? We've seen plenty of players do that. Jamar Chase sat out a full season to preserve his draft stock and not get injured. So
I'm pretty sure the pitch count thing, I want to say they didn't really love his ability to defend the run. So I think that was it. He didn't really play many traditional rundowns.
Yeah, and he would probably come in, especially as a rookie, to be a pure pass rusher for this team. But that's two guys in Mike Green and James Pierce Jr. that have a lot of talent, but some off-field or character concerns. And then Donovan Azaraku, who might be a first-round pick, might fall to 35. Again, it's such a jumbled edge class, it's hard to say how all these teams feel about him. But let's say the Titans go wide receiver at 35, and then they maybe trade Will Levis and a day 3 pick, and they pick up a third-rounder. Or they trade back from 35. Who are the targets you're looking at a little bit later on, still in that top 100 range?
Yeah, a couple names, and this is more for me like the 50 to 70 range. So I'm more considering this bucket as the trade back. If they trade down from 35, pick up an extra third, whatever. Some of the names I'd put in that bucket are Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, Femi Oladejo out of UCLA, and Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. I think I had one more I wanted to put in here. It's escaping me right now. It'll come to me, I think, at some point. But those kind of stick out to me. With Landon Jackson, I'm having a tough time knowing what to do with him, to be honest with you, because, modest producer at Arkansas, 6.5 sacks in back-to-back years, 2023, 2024. You wish he kind of had more pass rushing production. But when you turn on the tape, you start to notice some of the other details, like they asked him to play a lot of 4-eye at Arkansas. I didn't love that decision by their staff, and it limited his pass rushing production and upside a little bit. Then you get to the combine, and then some of the testing blows you away, and then some of it also kind of left something to be desired, right? Like, that's what I mean by I don't know what to do. Like 40.5-inch vertical, that was the best result out of any edge rusher. He had the second best broad as well at 10'9". But then one of the things that disappoints me is the 10-yard split. I talk about the L cone and the 5-10-5. Well, the 10-yard split's another one I put some stock into for an edge guy, because again, and you get it, that short area explosiveness, right? More so than the 40. How many times an edge rusher run 40 yards? Well, 10 yards, 5 to 10, something he's going to cover a bit more, right? So the 10-yard split was pretty disappointing at 165. And it might highlight a concerning lack of initial burst. So I've got one hand, I'm like, there's some athletic ability I love. I blame the Arkansas staff maybe for the positions they put him in. And then I look at the 10-yard and it scares me, and I wish he produced more sacks, more sack numbers. So I don't think this is a guy at 35, but I do think if you're at 50, 55, 65, I think maybe he'll be one of the better ones available. Nick Scorton, really quickly, out of Texas A&M. This is a guy, unlike a lot of these guys we talked about, I do think has a 3-down skill set. He played at about 280. this past year at Texas A&M. Now, he only had 5 sacks, right? That was a little disappointing because he had 10 the year before at Purdue. He transfers to a bigger program, wants to perform on a bigger stage, isn't quite as productive. I think he bulked up. I don't think he was 280 when he was at Purdue, but he was about 280 at Texas A&M. He bulks up, plays the run really well. I think he's a great early down run defender, but I do think there's a bit of a question there with how high the ceiling is as a pass rusher. I don't think that he's an elite pass rusher. I think he's a very good 3-down player. Maybe he's a Harold Landry, right? Like a good 3-down player that has 8 sacks every year, 9 sacks, right? You take that anytime, right? I don't know that you take it at 35 in a deep edge rushing class, but I do think if you trade back, I had given you one more name. It's going to drive me nuts now, but I had 3, and then I added Femi Oladejo, and now that's the one that I'm mostly remembering that I want to talk about here. There's some late first-round buzz, early second-round buzz on him. Look, I've got to know this kid really well throughout this process. I absolutely adore him. He's just outstanding personality. I think when it comes to the Titans specifically, where I'd have a question at 35 is they need an edge to come in and play right away. Remember, this kid made the transition from off-ball backer to edge midway through the 2024 season at UCLA. I mean, that's almost unheard of, right? Like, he didn't have an offseason to go through. He did it in like the 4th, 5th, 6th week of the season. Still comes up with about 5 sacks, very athletic, converts speed to power. He's got great bend and speed off the edge. But of course, there's still a bit of a project there, right? Teams are drafting him for the upside, and I don't want him to fall into a situation where it's the Titans were like, well, you're actually our edge number 1. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know if it's there at 35, but if it's later, beggars can't be choosers, right? If you decide to trade down and the edge group is mostly gone or combed through, and now you're looking at 50, 52, and he's the one with the most upside available, you take him anyway, and you just kind of take it on the chin and you play Arden Key and Draymond Jones maybe more than you should. But I think those are the handful of guys. I'm going to throw it back to you, and I'm going to look up who the heck I was trying to talk about as the other trade down guy, because for some reason it just escaped me.
Well, Femi Oladejo is one of the guys that the Titans have brought in for a top 30 visit. So I think it's definitely Yeah, you did. And so that's definitely a name to keep an eye on. The other guys that they brought in for top 30s
I'm sorry. Can I quickly? I'm sorry, it drove me nuts. It's Princely Oman Mielen. I don't know how I forgot for a second, but I put him in that same bucket as a Landon Jackson and a Nick Scorton. Like, if you're trading down 50, I don't think this guy's available in the hundreds, which is the next group we're going to talk about. But if you're trading down and you're in that, again, that you find yourself, or trading back up, you're in that 50 to 70 range, I would put Princely Oman Mielen. I thought he was really productive this past year. He's got great athleticism, deserves more attention than he's getting. I think he's like a rush backer in like a 3-4 kind of thing. But good sack production this past year, career high numbers, took a nice step forward after going from Florida to Ole Miss. I'm sorry. I just couldn't remember. It just came to me and I had to get it out there.
Yeah, I was just going to kill time there by telling our audience who the other visits the Titans had. Abdul Carter, they brought in for a top 30. Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams, they had combine formals with. Kyle Kennard, who we may get to in a bit, they had a virtual with, and Elijah Roberts, they had a pro day meeting with. So that's the group of guys that they've actually spent time with that we know of. There could be more throughout this process, but yeah, those are the names in a trade back scenario, or they pick up another day 2 pick through a Will Levis trade, or God forbid, Jeffrey Simmons, Roger McCreary, somebody else gets traded on draft night. You never know, it could happen. But let's talk about, let's say they did take an edge or they didn't, and they're double dipping or they're not, and it's the first edge they're taking. We're into round 4 where the Titans have 2 4th-round picks, 2 5th-round picks, 2 6th-round picks. In that early day 3 range, who are some guys you're looking at?
Yeah, I think these are probably the late day 2, early day 3. I think some of these guys are good enough to go right before the Titans have a 4th-round pick. But, anything can happen in the draft. I like to give wide ranges because you never know. I do think these guys, though, are more in like that, 70 to 100 range as opposed to 30 to 50. So that's why I'm kind of grouping them in one bucket. One that I like a decent amount is Oregon defensive end Jordan Birch. I think this guy's a true 3-down guy. He had a great year for the Ducks this past year. I think he went there in 2023 and was just kind of okay. But this past year, 8.5 sacks. He was great at the combine, 4.67 in the 40-yard dash at 279 pounds. So again, a different body type, more like the Nick Scorton we talked about earlier. But what I really like about this guy is I think he might have the best bull rush out of
Hmm.
any edge in this class. He's really, really powerful. So he's kind of cut from a different cloth. And I talked to him about that. I told him I think he might have the best bull, and he confirmed for me. He said, "I love to get into that bull. I like to, direct quote. I like to find out if offensive linemen can handle that bull rush early. I look for that in the film session, and if I know they can't, then I'm going to hit them with it early because I enjoy pushing the pocket, but I can counter off it. I like the hump move, cross chop, forklift. He's got a deep bag. I really like this guy. I see 3 down potential. If the Titans go receiver at 35 and you're really panicked about the edge situation, if they get him at 103, I'd consider that a home freaking run, man. I might like him better than some of the realistic options at 35 when I start, factoring in the value. Another one who I really like a lot that I don't think is getting as much attention as he deserves, played at LSU. Braden Swinson is his name. They had 2 edge rushers that are going to get drafted there with him and Savion Jones. But Braden Swinson at the combine was 6'4", 255. He's got pretty good length, about 33.5-inch arms. Unfortunately, didn't do a ton of testing there, but he did run a 7.13 in the 3-cone, and he had a 4.33 20-yard shuttle. Started his career at Oregon. But like everyone nowadays, transfers over. He goes to LSU. Actually, in 2023, I thought he was all right there. Was getting his feet wet. Was more rotational. I thought this past year he was outstanding. Like when I turned the tape on this guy, what I don't understand is why we're not talking more about him. He's just always in the backfield, and he's got the numbers to prove it. He had 13 TFLs this year and 8.5 sacks. And he did that in 13 games with 12 starts. He had 60 total tackles. I really like him. He's long. He's big. I think he's going to continue expanding his frame at the next level. I think there's some room for some growth. I don't expect he'll play at 255. I think he's more like a 265 kind of guy, but he knows how to use that length and that athleticism to beat blocks. And again, he was just always making plays. So I'm a big fan of his as well. One of the other ones I wanted to kind of get into is a bit unconventional from a size perspective, and I think that's why he might be there a little bit later, and in the fourth at least, is Antoine Powell-Ryland. 6'3", 258. The problem is the length. He barely has 31-inch arms. So that's something that's going to be a concern for teams. But I thought he had a good combine. He ran a 4.69. 36.5-inch vert, 10-foot broad. I think that athleticism is pretty evident on tape. This past year, he was really impressive. 16 sacks this past year. That was third in the FBS. I talked about Donovan Ezharaku earlier, who I think was second best. This guy had third best in the FBS, 16 sacks. And when you watch the tape, he's one of those guys you're willing to make an exception for. You're like, man, I really don't love the size, but damn it, the motor, the production, is just so impressive. The athleticism is obviously there. 25.5 sacks, by the way, the total numbers over the past 2 seasons. And again, the length is something that, I've had conversations with scouts. It is a concern for teams, but he's just got such a great motor. He's almost unpredictable and unconventional when he's rushing the passer, and he's got to be, right? I think when you've got the measurements that he has, but I do think he's going to continue developing, and the production is really hard to ignore. You got to get past the modest traits, I guess, and I thought the athleticism. I'll say this: I thought it was the combine didn't always align with what I saw on tape. I didn't think he was an elite athlete on tape. I thought he was just an okay athlete on tape. You pair that with the lack of length, those are your concerns. But when you get to the production, you're really, really impressed. So for me, Jordan Burch, Braden Swinson, Antoine Powell-Ryland, some of the guys I think I'd have at the top of my list in the really late third, early fourth round range.
And why don't we close this out by talking about some sleepers? And we know edge prospects that are picked on day 3 typically don't amount to much. Every once in a while they do, though. So maybe some late round sleepers that the Titans use, maybe one of their late 5ths or one of the 2 6th-round picks that they have there.
Yeah, there's not a ton of them. It's edge, right? Let's be honest. It's a premium position. They fly early. One guy you said we're going to get to that they had a virtual with, I probably should have grouped him with this last bucket, but I do like Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina, and I like him quite a bit. I thought he was really good, real versatile this past year. Again, took a big step this past season and was uber productive at South Carolina. I think you can look it up for me because I think he had but it was either 8.5 or 10.5 sacks. I've got those numbers stuck in my head, and I think one of them is right. And if you make me look like an idiot, then that's just fine. You could go ahead and do that.
Kyle Kennard had 11 and a half sacks last season.
Wow, I said, yeah. So I said 10 and a half, right? 11 and a half sacks. He was super productive. I like what I saw on tape. A couple of the others quickly. David Walker out of Central Arkansas, small school guy, but insanely productive out of the FCS. And there's also some size concerns, so that's going to limit him and is going to make him a day 3 pick. But again, I would kind of keep him in this bucket. And then the other one that I want to throw in here as well is Jaw Joyner out of Minnesota and Tyler Barron out of Miami. I think these are guys that I like quite a bit. I thought Joyner was more productive in 2023 than he was in 2024. But there's something there when you watch the tape. And again, I talk about exceptions. I would go back, make an exception, watch some of that 23 tape, see what he's capable of. And then again, Tyler Barron out of Miami is one that I liked on tape as well. But I would say that's the main group. I'm not going to get into deep sleepers because at edge, it's just not a thing. Like, remember last year, like the NFL always knows. We thought when we got Jalen Harrell in the 7th, like, oh my God, like this is going to be a great bet. And Jalen Harrell didn't really do anything as a rookie, and the NFL had him as a 7th round pick for a reason. And they have 99.9% of edges as 6th and 7th round picks for a reason. So Titans are going to want to get one that contributes right away. History tells you it's got to be in the top 50 picks and sometimes even earlier. So it's got to be at 35 or through a trade back. And then, if it's in the 4th, then hopefully you just get a contributor that can kind of play almost as many snaps as like Draymond Jones and Arden Key. Because right now the Titans got a bunch of number 3s at edge, in my opinion, in Arden Key and Draymond. Yeah. If you get a number 3 at 102 overall or whatever they're picking, then you've got 3 number 3s and you've got to play all 3 of them and hope for the best. But that's the edge group in a nutshell for me. I didn't get into Michael Williams, Shamar, Jalen Walker. These guys are going early. Titans met with a couple of them. At the time, I think they were still considering trading down. If they were going to go down to 8, 9, 10 overall, like I think Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart, that's probably where they end up. I think they've done something on Jalen Walker too. I'm pretty sure the Titans throughout this process. I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere. So either way, they're not drafting those guys, right? Like they're going Cam Ward at number 1. They won't be available at 35. So, no point spending a lot of time on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to be totally honest, Justin, like this is more of a philosophical discussion, maybe for a later date. It might prove to be completely irrelevant. So I'll keep it brief. But my personal opinion we opened this show talking about the glaring hole, the huge need they have at the edge position, but that doesn't mean they have to address it this season. And obviously you want to get the roster in as good a shape as possible, as quickly as possible. But this has been so many years of poor drafting from John Robinson to Rand Carthon. And last year's draft looks pretty good right now, and hopefully those players that they found in the later rounds, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., even Tavondre Sweat, hopefully those guys continue to be great, and hopefully Jalen Harrell becomes a rotational player or a special teams contributor and can be something as well. But after so many years of poor drafting, there are a ton of holes. It's not going to be a one-year rebuild, and I think they seem to be locked in on Cam Ward at number 1. If that's the direction you're going to go, then how about for this season, you just make life as easy on Cam Ward as you possibly can. And if that means you don't repair the edge position and you enter the season with a big-time hole at that spot, then you just live a year with a big-time hole at that spot. And next year you probably want to add a dynamic receiving option. We're going to have the debate, I predict, next draft season, a year from now. Should the Titans go with receiver prospect A or edge prospect A in the first round with their 15th overall pick or whatever, right? Like, I feel like that's where we're heading, and that's okay. That's okay, because this year, I think you want to get receivers that can contribute quickly, which is, again, why I'm so high on Kyle Williams, because I think he's so pro-ready. Someone that can come in from day one and contribute and help Cam Ward. And if that means you don't take an edge this year, so be it. You're not competing for a Super Bowl this year. You're trying to rebuild. You're trying to reset the culture with a new quarterback and a new era. You can save the edge position until 2026 if you have to. If somebody great falls to you in the second round, or you get a third round pick or a fourth round, whatever, obviously you can take a swing on a guy. But I just don't think anyone you draft outside the top 40 at the edge position, like your odds of that person coming in and being a really good pass rusher are just not very high. So, take it for what it is. Use this year to get back on track. And then next year you can add those final pieces you need to be a true contender.
Absolutely. You make a compelling argument why they maybe will and maybe should go with a wide receiver at number 35, right? It's all about investing in Cam Ward. And you did that in free agency with the O-line, right? Getting Dan Moore and Kevin Zeitler and moving JC over to the right tackle. You feel good about where that group is, but you don't feel very good about where your wide receiver group is. So no doubt it's a compelling argument to go at 35. And look, Draymond Jones and Arden Key, they're NFL caliber. I mean, that's even maybe a disrespectful. They're more than NFL caliber players, right? Like they're like, again, I would say they're like good number 3 rotational rushers. It's not like they have Jalen Harrell and Lorenzo Carter as the starting edges right now, who by the way is also on the roster. Lorenzo Carter, they added in free agency. We kind of didn't mention him earlier, but I consider him a deep rotational guy. But it's not like they're 1 and 2, right? You've got Arden Key, you've got Draymond Jones. Both of those guys are going to get you like 6-7 sacks this year each, probably. That's usually the kind of range they're in. So, no, it wouldn't be good, but you're right. They can't fix everything in one offseason. They can't. There's been too many years of roster negligence, if you will, and prioritizing wide receiver might be the smarter move when you've got a rookie quarterback coming in.
And it really makes you think, like, wouldn't this roster be better off with Harold Landry on it, no matter how much you're paying him? I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling to me that they just said, we're better without him, and we're not even going to use this money. But it rolls over for next year, so they can spend the money next year if they need to. All right, any final thoughts on the Edge class, or are we closing this thing out?
No, that's all. I think we did a really good job covering pretty much every name they should be considering. You should be able to pull something from this at some point and say, hey, Titans took that guy, and Melo and Graver talked about him on the episode, because that's a good group, and I thought we did a good job going through them thoroughly.
Yeah, and just like with the receiver position, there's plenty of guys we didn't talk about that could be in contention as well. And if, they end up picking one of those guys, guess what? We're going to be on after every pick as much as we can to react to every pick that happens in less than a week from now, or in a week from today for round 2 and 3, or a week from tomorrow for rounds 4 through 7. So quick look ahead at our schedule, Justin, just so that people know what's coming. Next week is draft week. Crazy that it's already here. Although this process feels like it took 8 years, it also feels like it took 8 minutes. So next Monday, for Mock Draft Monday, we're going to do our dueling mock drafts, something we've done every year since we started podcasting together. By the way, we're over 350 episodes now, just as a Music City Audible. That doesn't include our project before Music City Audible started. So we've been doing this for a long time now, and we're going to bring back our dueling mock drafts on Monday. Tuesday next week, we're going to do some bold predictions for the Titans draft. That one might be a more fun episode. I'm not sure how many of those bold predictions will actually happen, but it's a fun thing to look at. Wednesday next week, I'm dropping a show that I really want to do with you, Justin, called Reality Check, where we're going to talk about how things are going to play out, and how things don't always play out the way you hope and the way you want, but a good dose of reality that I think is an important episode for us to do. On Thursday night, when the draft begins and the Titans select Cam Ward, we will have our emergency reaction to that pick that we're going to put up here. And then again on Friday, every pick the Titans make, if it's one, if it's more than one, we'll hop on here and do a quick reaction to those as well. Same thing on Saturday. Justin, anything else we need to hit, or should we say goodbye?
I think that does it. Excited to see which of these edge players ends up in Tennessee, and excited for the content schedule that's coming. There's so much coming your guys' way over these next 2 weeks. Really, really excited about what we got planned here at Music City Audible. Same here. All right, that'll do it for this one. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Remember to subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, like, and drop a comment below. Who are your favorite edge prospects in this class? Who did we not talk about that you wish we'd mentioned? Maybe Justin will throw you a few scouting points in the comments, a little quick evaluation there. And until next Monday for Mock Draft Monday, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.